Hi, this is Good News. Resist not evil, said Jesus, according to Matthew 5:39. I am complete with sin and Maya and injustice and other similar words like incurable illness. Instead, I may use inconsistent and mistaken and inapplicable and imprecise and ineffective. Yes, the second set are adjectives, not nouns. However, that is the point. Consider that there is simply no such thing as a sin, or not until someone says so. There is even no such thing as a crime, or not until someone criminalizes something and then enforces their declaration of the existence of a crime with a regulatory agency and law enforcement officers and punishments and tribunals and so forth. For instance, in the U.S. during the early 20th century, the production of alcoholic beverages was criminalized by amendment to the U.S. Constitution, then decriminalized by a later amendment. So, is it inherently criminal to produce or brew alcohol or not? Alcohol may ferment naturally from fruit. If an apple falls from a tree and begins to ferment, producing alcohol, has someone committed a crime or not? Aha, but what about a grape? In other words, is the natural biochemical process of the fermentation of fruit, which produces alcoholic liquid, inherently criminal, or evil, or sinful, or shameful, or bad, or dangerous? Consider that there is nothing inherently criminal in any inaction, such as failure to join a national military, or in any action, such as dropping a bomb and killing thousands of people, civilians or soldiers, in the name of freedom, or equality, or retribution, or terrorism, or peacekeeping, etc. Governments criminalize certain activities as part of their normal functioning of regulating or governing the behavior of the territories they occupy. Punishments and rewards are invented and enforced by certain people against others or for others. All governments are occupation governments, operations of organized coercion or violence or intimidation, aka military governments. This is not a condemnation of any or all governments. They're not inherently evil. Nothing is inherently evil. Evil is a category in language that is invented and applied and later redefined, like the terms crime, sin, and injustice. Even the definitions of what is an illness change over time. You may have heard of an incurable illness called scurvy. You may have at least heard that at one time certain medical professionals may have referenced an outbreak of incurable scurvy among sailors who were all on a long sailing voyage together. Perhaps the ignorant medical professionals simply misunderstood innocently that what they called scurvy was just the name for some symptoms of a certain level of vitamin C. When we identify something as the symptoms of a relatively low level of vitamin C, we are not creating an illness or performing a curse in black magic. A particular level of vitamin C cannot be labeled an incurable illness. Of course, there's really no such thing as an incurable illness or even an illness at all. Every so-called illness is declared into being, perhaps as distinct from such things as an injury or biochemical toxicity. An illness is fundamentally an activity in language, a process of categorization, a social construction of so-called agreement reality. There are any number of actions that are inconsistent with a statement of intent or ineffective for producing a certain result. But the belief that there is something inherently wrong with anything in life, not that something is just misapplied, but that there's something inherently wrong with anything in life, with any of God's creation, any of God's creations, is what I would call diabolical. From the roots diabolos, meaning accusational or vilifying, as in satanic or shaming or cursing. I did not come to condemn the world, but to remove the sin of the world, to free the humble from shame with a truth that many people may ridicule or as foolishness or simply dismiss. The humble will be innocent and curious and peaceful, like children, and experience what we might call the state of heaven. Those who worship vanity and wickedness and evil and illness and darkness and may continue to burn with envy and animosity and condemnation and guilt and contempt and antagonism and belligerence and a savior complex. Now, when a linguistic model fits well with a particular circumstance or context, then it is useful. When it does not fit, it is inconsistent with the circumstances, irrelevant, ineffective, inapplicable. Using an inapplicable model, especially obsessively or religiously or stubbornly, can produce surprises, frustrations, confusions, conflicts, and exhaustions. So the use of words like sin and crime and evil and injustice are simply for the influencing of behavior, for governing, for herding, for leading. So is the use of the words our enemy. When someone tells you about our enemy, consider that they might be attempting to influence your behavior. Consciously or unconsciously, they might be attempting to influence your behavior. How is it that I would assert that they might be attempting to influence your behavior? Because they're speaking to you. Like, we know, I might be attempting to influence your behavior. It's possible. So, when we are taught by commercial media and public schools and governments and so forth that certain churches, even, that certain purchases are safe, probably not churches that say this, but nevertheless, if we're taught by anyone that certain purchases are safe, such as because they are government regulated or government operated, consider that such teaching are what we might call a sales pitch. Certain types of industries, certain types of businesses, certain types of investments may have in common the following things: that people have faith in them, that some people value them particularly, like rather than diversify, they might concentrate very specifically in a particular investment. They might be very dependent on a certain market or on a certain program or certain government promise or prospect. Some people regularly invest in certain particular things. And some people might even get insulted and argumentative or even violent at a reference to the reality of the extent of sustainability or wisdom or integrity in certain operations or trends of changing behaviors. I'll list a few things. See if any of these are things that you think are so safe that you haven't actually done any personal research to find out how safe they are, because you just presume they're safe because they're government regulated or government operated. The FDIC, the FDA, casinos, the Social Security Administration, the mortgage industry, state lotteries, insurance companies. They're all government regulated or government operated. They must be safe, right? Beware of those who worship a particular linguistic model for reality, as if one particular linguistic model is inherently more sacred or moral or applicable than all other models. They may be fools who do not understand the function of language. Language, by the way, may be a tool for influencing perception and behavior of others, for organizing behavior, for governing. Again, I'm complete with sin and maya and injustice and other similar words like incurable illness. Instead, I may use inconsistent and mistaken and inapplicable and imprecise and ineffective. Yes, the second set are adjectives, not nouns. However, that is the point.